For every genius who designs a life-changing piece of tech, there's a customer complaining their noise-canceling headphones can't block their own thoughts. This isn't about celebrating innovation, it's about the glorious, baffling, and hilarious gap between instruction manuals and human instinct. We've collected 55 of the most absurd tech complaints ever recorded, straight from the exhausted heroes who work the support lines. Speaking of which, I'm curious, what piece of tech are you watching this on? Write in the comments. 1. The humble toaster was the target of a complaint that can only be described as a culinary betrayal. A user, believing a toaster was just a fast vertical grill, inserted a thick raw steak into one of the slots and cranked it to the highest setting. The result was a plume of smoke and a piece of meat that was horribly charred on the outside and stone-cold raw on the inside. He was livid, not at his own logic, but at the toaster for its uneven and frankly disgusting cooking performance. He demanded a refund for the appliance and the ruined steak. 2. A man tried to use his new electric hand mixer as a motor for his inflatable boat. He stuck the beaters in the water, and while it made a huge splash, the boat barely moved. His one-star review had nothing to do with baking. Instead, he complained that the mixer was a terrible boat motor. He slammed the terrible design of the beaters and the weak power of the motor. He seriously argued that the company was missing out on a huge market for kitchen gadgets that could also be used to power boats. 3. A man put a smart lock on his liquor cabinet to stop himself from drinking late at night. He programmed it to automatically lock at 10 p.m. But a few nights later, he decided he really wanted a drink. The lock, following his own rules, refused to open. He called the company, furious. His complaint was that the lock was working perfectly. He was angry that there was no emergency override for when he wanted to break his own rules. He was literally complaining that the device he bought to enforce his own willpower was, in fact, enforcing his willpower. 4. When a tech support agent asked a user what they'd done to fix their computer virus, the user proudly explained they had taken the monitor into the shower and scrubbed the screen with dish soap to get the virus spots off. The monitor was, of course, completely destroyed. But their complaint wasn't about their mistake. It was that the company was at fault for using the word virus if they didn't expect people to literally try and wash it off. What's the most disastrously literal interpretation of a tech term you've ever witnessed? 5. The owner of a smart pet feeder lodged a complaint about its lack of persuasive abilities. The machine dispensed food on schedule, but their picky cat would often ignore it. The user was furious that the multi-$100 device made no effort to encourage the cat to eat. They expected it to have features like a gentle, reassuring voice, or perhaps a robotic arm to nudge the food bowl enticingly. The feeder's failure, in their eyes, was its inability to function as a feline motivational coach. 6. It's amazing how often physics becomes a tech support problem. A caller was convinced his new wireless optical mouse was defective, saying the cursor would randomly freeze and jump around. After troubleshooting drivers and connections, the weary technician asked a simple question. What kind of surface are you using it on? The answer? A sleek, modern, and completely transparent glass desk. The mouse's optical eye had nothing to see. 7. In a bold attempt to merge digital and physical worlds, a customer called a printer company because their new device failed to print a video. They had a short clip of their daughter's first steps and wanted a moving photo for the fridge. The support agent was speechless as the user asked if there was a special type of motion paper they needed to buy. What's the most technically impossible thing you've ever heard someone ask for? 8. I asked my car for relationship advice, and it failed. That was the start of a complaint against a car's built-in voice assistant. The driver had asked the AI, "Should I text my ex?" and received a generic, non-committal answer about being unable to help with personal matters. The driver was furious, arguing that a true co-pilot AI should be able to analyze their tone of voice and recent call history to provide nuanced emotional guidance. The complaint was that the AI lacked critical life experience. 9. a tourist filed a 1-star review for a GPS navigation app because it led them directly into a massive traffic jam. This was a roadblock for a town's annual Founders' Day parade. The user was furious that the multi-billion-dollar satellite system, able to pinpoint their location from space, didn't have the foresight to check the local town hall calendar for scheduled street festivals. 10. An entire office floor ground to a halt when a manager's computer monitor went black. He called IT, insisting a massive power surge fried his system. A technician arrived, ran diagnostics, and checked the outlets, finding nothing wrong. Finally, he crawled under the desk and followed the monitor's power cord. It was unplugged. The cleaning crew had accidentally nudged it out the night before. The manager just slowly turned bright red. 11. An amateur potter filed a complaint after his new air fryer failed spectacularly as a miniature kiln for his clay sculptures. The experiment predictably ended in a clay-fused disaster that wrecked the machine. He wasn't mad about his logic, though. He was furious at the company for false advertising. He insisted their promise of circulating superheated air for a crispy finish was basically the definition of a kiln, demanding a refund for the fryer plus compensation for his ruined art. 12. An air purifier, a device designed to remove dust and allergens from the air, was returned by a user who complained it was failing to eliminate audible pollutants. They lived in an apartment with thin walls and were furious that they could still hear their neighbors arguing. They genuinely believed a high-end purifier should be able to filter out sound waves, specifically foul language and negative tones. Their official complaint was that the device was useless for atmospheric detoxification. 13. In one of the most legendary calls to a microwave manufacturer, a customer claimed the appliance actively stole the flavor from his food. He didn't think it was just heating it poorly. He believed the microwaves were intelligent waves that targeted and extracted the taste molecules, leaving a bland husk. His demand wasn't just a refund for the microwave, but also reimbursement for the $20 ribeye steak it had robbed of its soul. 14. A man complained that his calorie tracking app was a complete liar. After eating a huge 3,000-calorie meal at a buffet, he went for a walk, and the app showed he had burned 300 calories. This made him furious. He complained that the app was hiding the truth. He didn't want to see just the calories he burned. He wanted the app to show the real number, that he was still up by 2,700 calories. He was angry because the app wasn't constantly shaming him for how badly he had messed up his diet. 15. The copy button on an all-in-one printer was the source of a reality-bending complaint from a user needing a spare house key. They placed their only key on the scanner, selected color copy, and waited. When out came a sheet of paper with a perfect life-sized image of their key, they called support, absolutely livid. They genuinely believed a copier was a 3D replicator and were furious it produced a useless paper picture instead of a functional metal key. Their official complaint accused the company of fraud for selling a machine that only made flat versions of things. 16. You've probably heard horror stories about robot vacuums and pet accidents. But one owner took his complaint to a new dimension. He wasn't mad that his vacuum spread the dog poop all over the living room. He was furious that the vacuum's advanced AI mapping and object recognition technology didn't identify the obstacle as a biological hazard and quarantine the area. His expectation was for the robot to act like a miniature hazmat team. How smart do you think our home devices should realistically be? 17. Proving that no warning label is ever foolproof, a man returned a high-powered blender in pieces. His grand idea was to create custom decorative sand for his wife's terrarium by pulverizing a handful of river rocks. When the blender's hardened steel blades predictably shattered against the stones, he was livid. His complaint wasn't about his own flawed logic. He blamed the company for false advertising, citing the marketing that boasted of a motor powerful enough to crush ice with ease. In his mind, rocks were just really hard ice. 18. 1 star was the rating a customer gave a new electric toothbrush because it failed to properly polish his grandmother's antique silverware. He complained that the oscillating head left streaks on the forks and that the deep clean mode was a complete lie. In his mind, a high-end device for cleaning teeth should obviously be a multi-purpose tool for buffing precious metals. The company, he argued, was missing a huge market. 19. A smartphone's front-facing selfie camera was deemed unfit for purpose by one customer. The problem wasn't the image quality. In fact, that was the issue. He complained the new ultra-high-definition camera was brutally honest, capturing every single wrinkle, pore, and gray hair with crystal clarity. He didn't want reality. He wanted flattery. He demanded the company release a software update that would apply a subtle de-aging filter as the default setting, because the current version was a relentless attack on his self-esteem. 20. A scathing 1-star review for a leading translation app came with a very specific and furry problem. The user was furious that the app consistently failed to translate their cat's meows into English. Their complaint wasn't that the concept was impossible. No, they theorized their Siamese cat was speaking a rare and complex regional dialect of feline, and they accused the developers of being culturally insensitive for not supporting it. They demanded an immediate software update to include all major cat languages, complete with purrs and hisses. 21. Trying to cheat his way to 10,000 steps, one user had a brilliant idea: strap his fitness tracker to his dog. His plan failed spectacularly. The device's AI was too clever, recognizing the chaotic pattern of a running dog and logging almost 0 human steps. But his complaint wasn't about his failed attempt to cheat. He was formally complaining that the app had insulted his pet. He demanded the company change its algorithm, arguing his dog's movement wasn't erratic. It was just very energetic. 22. Smart light bulbs can do amazing things, but they can't, as one user discovered. Read your mind. A woman complained that her new smart lighting system was emotionally unintelligent. She had just gone through a breakup and was livid that she had to manually select the somber blue lighting theme on her app. She fully expected the lights to sync with her phone's data, notice the sad songs on her playlist and the lack of outgoing texts, and automatically create the appropriate breakup ambiance for her. 23. Trying to achieve a state of perfect zen, a customer bought a pair of high-end noise-canceling headphones. He returned them a day later, complaining they were defective because he could still hear his own thoughts. He was genuinely angry that the $100 headphones, while successfully blocking out the noisy world around him, did absolutely nothing to silence his annoying inner monologue. He accused the company of failing to deliver on the promise of true silence. At what point does a feature request just become a demand to rewrite the laws of physics? 24. The Panorama feature on modern smartphones is incredible, unless a subject is moving. One parent sent in a furious complaint, complete with a photo of their child looking like a horrifying, multi-limbed creature from another dimension. They admitted their son was running across the frame while the panorama was being taken, but they insisted that a phone this expensive should have software smart enough to predict the movement and reassemble the child correctly in the final image. 25. Some product complaints leave support teams utterly speechless. Take the man who called to complain about his new electric shaver. His issue wasn't with how it shaved his face, it was with its performance as a kitchen gadget. He had been trying to use it to peel a kiwi, and was deeply disappointed when the foil head only managed to shred the fruit's fuzzy skin, making a huge mess. He was adamant that a device so good at removing hair should obviously be a multi-purpose peeler. 26. A luxury car owner filed an official warranty claim for what he described as a critical failure of his heated seats. The service department was baffled when he brought the car in, as the seats seemed to warm up perfectly. The owner then revealed the true nature of the problem. The highest heat setting wasn't hot enough to properly warm his breakfast burrito during his morning commute. He explained that he would place the burrito on the passenger seat, but by the time he got to work, it was merely lukewarm. His complaint was that the car failed to function as a mobile food warmer, and he demanded a software update for a culinary heat setting. 27. A digital picture frame designed to cycle through photos was returned because it failed to show the passage of time. A proud new grandfather had uploaded a picture of his newborn grandson. A year later, he was irate that the picture on the frame was still of a newborn. He had genuinely expected the device to use its internal clock to magically age the person in the photograph in real time. He accused the company of selling a static and historically inaccurate product. 28. A customer returned a brand new power bank with a complaint that defied basic logic. He was furious that the power bank itself needed to be charged. He genuinely believed he had purchased a device that created unlimited power out of thin air. The fact that he had to plug it into the wall to fill it up seemed like a complete scam to him. His argument was simple. If he needed a wall outlet to make the power bank work, he might as well just use that outlet to charge his phone directly. He accused the company of false advertising for selling a product that didn't generate its own energy. 29. There's irony, and then there's this. A user sent a furious all-caps email to a password manager company. He had forgotten his one master password and was locked out of his account. The company explained that, for his own security, they don't have access to his password and can't retrieve it. He was livid, complaining that their ridiculous security was the problem. He was, in essence, complaining that the one feature he paid for, impenetrable security, was working exactly as advertised. 30. An avid reader bought a new e-reader and immediately filed a complaint about its most celebrated feature, the paper-like screen. His issue wasn't with the clarity or the lack of glare. He was deeply disappointed that the device didn't replicate that authentic, old book smell. He argued that if the goal was to simulate the experience of reading a real book, the company had failed miserably by omitting the critical sensory element of paper decay and dust. His suggestion? A musty library scent cartridge accessory. 31. One user filed an official complaint against his internet provider, claiming his new high-speed router was defective because it was letting in his neighbor's bad Wi-Fi. He was convinced that Wi-Fi signals were like air quality and that his neighbor's negative, low-quality internet was seeping into his apartment, contaminating his premium signal and slowing down his connection. He demanded a technician come out and install a digital filter at the wall to block the bad vibes from next door. 32. It's a voice remote, not a mind-reading remote, was the exasperated response from a tech support agent. A customer was furious that his new smart TV's voice search feature was useless for private browsing. His complaint was that he had to physically speak his commands, which meant his wife could hear him when he tried to search for double bacon cheeseburger delivery at midnight. He genuinely expected the remote to have a telepathic mode for discreet searching, and accused the company of failing to consider the needs of snack-sneaking husbands. 33. An electric kettle designed solely for boiling water met its match: instant ramen. A user dumped in the noodles and flavor packet, creating a scorched sludge permanently fused to the heating element. His complaint wasn't about his catastrophic decision, but the kettle's design. He was furious it was impossible to stir, and accused the company of false advertising for not explicitly stating it was for water only. 34. Getting fired from your job is bad. Blaming your smartwatch for it is next level. One user filed a formal complaint against a tech giant after he was terminated. His watch's stand up and move reminder went off during a tense board meeting with the CEO. He dutifully stood up and started stretching, which led to his immediate dismissal. The complaint? The watch company was liable for giving him inappropriate and career-ending health advice. 35. One driver gave a GPS navigation app a 1-star review because it was unimaginative and boring. He had specifically requested the fastest route to his destination, which the app provided perfectly. However, he was furious that this route consisted entirely of a straight, monotonous highway. He complained that the app's AI should have been smart enough to recognize his adventurous personality and automatically chosen a more scenic, winding back road, even if it took longer. He was complaining that the app did exactly what he told it to do. 36. A driver filed a complaint against their car's GPS for its judgmental tone. They insisted that every time they missed a turn, the automated voice saying, "recalculating," sounded smug and condescending. They felt bullied by their car's navigation system. Their demand? A software update with a more supportive voice that would say something like, "It's okay, we all make mistakes. Let's find a new way together." 37. The return to home feature on a drone is a lifesaver, unless your home is a 30th floor apartment. One user was furious that his expensive drone kept crashing into the side of his building. He fully expected the device to navigate through the lobby, call the elevator, fly down the hallway, and gently tap on his apartment door. He accused the company of false advertising for not specifying the feature was for ground-level houses only. 38. Ever worry about online privacy? A driver took that fear to a paranoid extreme, complaining that his car's Bluetooth system was broadcasting his private phone calls to every other vehicle on the highway. He was convinced that Bluetooth worked like a radio station and that other drivers were tuning in to his frequency to hear him argue with his wife. He demanded the company recall the feature before it caused a national security crisis. What's the most ridiculous tech myth you've ever heard someone believe? 39. A user's interpretation of wireless charging was far more ambitious than what the technology offered. He bought a wireless charging pad and was furious that he had to physically place his phone on the pad for it to work. He had assumed wireless meant the power would beam across the room to his phone, whether he was on the couch or in the kitchen. His official complaint stated that the product was defective because it had a range of 0 inches, and he accused the company of misleading customers by not calling it a contact charger. 40. A streaming service's offline mode was the target of a truly philosophical complaint. A user downloaded a movie for a flight but was furious after watching it. The problem? The characters in the movie were still using smartphones and browsing the internet. They argued that for a truly immersive, offline experience, the movie's narrative should also be completely off the grid. They accused the company of false advertising for failing to provide a story that respected their own digital detox. 41. The fingerprint scanner on a new company laptop was the subject of a bizarre security complaint. An employee, paranoid about forgetting his password, had made a high-resolution photocopy of his thumb. His plan was to scan the piece of paper to log in. When the advanced biometric sensor refused to be fooled, he was furious. His official complaint wasn't that his plan failed. It was that the scanner's security was excessively paranoid for not recognizing a perfectly legitimate paper-based backup of his thumb. 42. In a quest that defied the laws of physics, a user returned a food dehydrator because it failed to produce powdered water. They had filled the trays with water, set it to the highest setting, and come back hours later to find them completely empty. They were enraged, accusing the machine of losing their water. They didn't see it as evaporation. They saw it as a product defect. They demanded a refund for the dehydrator and compensation for 2 gallons of stolen spring water. 43. A user called tech support in a rage, claiming their new laptop got a virus. A pop-up ad told them they were the 1 millionth visitor and had won a free iPad. All they had to do was enter their personal information and download a prize verification tool. They were genuinely angry that their expensive antivirus software didn't automatically understand that this very legitimate prize offer was, in fact, legitimate. 44. After a weekend-long session with a new virtual reality headset, a user called support in a genuine panic. Their complaint? The VR headset had permanently downgraded the graphics of the real world. They claimed that after the hyper-realistic visuals of the game, their normal vision now looked blurry, pixelated, and suffered from low frame rates. They were convinced the headset had ruined their eyes' resolution and demanded the company pay for an optometrist to recalibrate their optical settings. 45. A baker, attempting to make a gluten-free, keto-friendly loaf using only almond flour, eggs, and hope, was outraged when their new bread maker produced a dense, inedible brick. But their complaint wasn't about the recipe. They formally accused the bread maker of having a culinary bias and being programmed with pro-gluten algorithms. They insisted the machine was discriminating against their alternative lifestyle and demanded the company release a firmware update to make it more baking-style inclusive. 46. A user accused their smart scale of having zero holiday spirit after it accurately reported their 7-pound weight gain following Christmas. They were furious, insisting a truly smart device should have a holiday grace period and automatically ignore weight from festive meals. Their complaint was that the scale was being brutally honest instead of empathetic to their holiday traditions. Do you think our smart devices are getting a little too honest? 47. Then there was the guy who demanded a full refund for his top-of-the-line waterproof smartphone. Why? He took it snorkeling in the ocean, and it died. He angrily pointed to ads showing the phone being used in pools and in the rain. The support agent had to explain that waterproof means tested in fresh, controlled water, not the corrosive, salty abyss of the Atlantic. He apparently thought he bought a personal submarine. 48. A woman lodged a formal privacy complaint against her new smart speaker. Her chilling accusation? The device was listening to her conversations. The customer service rep, trying to maintain a straight face, confirmed that yes, the device, whose entire purpose is to listen for a wake word, was indeed listening. She was horrified and demanded a model that didn't listen until she wanted it to. 49. The water is too wet. That was the official and frankly poetic complaint from a customer returning a brand new smart refrigerator. The customer service agent, completely stunned, asked him to elaborate. He insisted the water from the dispenser felt significantly wetter than bottled water and was making his throat feel overly saturated. He was convinced the fridge was somehow altering the fundamental properties of H2O, and he wanted no part of this advanced, soggy science. 50. The owner of a smart sprinkler system lodged a complaint because his lawn was brown after a surprise heatwave. The system was programmed to check the weather forecast and not water if rain was predicted. A predicted storm never arrived, and the heat scorched the grass. The owner was livid, not at the weather forecasters, but at his sprinkler. His argument? The device should have been smart enough to sense the emotional disappointment of the clouds and water the lawn anyway. 51. An office worker called IT panicked that his computer was frozen on a screen that said, "Press any key to continue." He swore he'd tried everything. A technician went to his desk and watched as the man, with intense focus, started pointing at keys asking, "Is this the one? How about this one?" The user had been searching for 15 minutes for a key with the literal word "any" printed on it. 52. A customer called in, furious that her new computer had a flimsy, defective cup holder. When the support agent asked her to describe it, she pointed to the thin plastic tray that popped out of the front. For years, she had been using her old computer's CD-ROM drive to hold her morning coffee. Her complaint wasn't that it broke. It was that the new model's cup holder couldn't even support the weight of a small latte. 53. In a complaint that proves there's such a thing as being too helpful, a user left a 1-star review for an online thesaurus. Their issue wasn't that it lacked words, it was that it provided too many. They were looking for a single synonym for happy, but the site's comprehensive list of options, joyful, cheerful, merry, delighted, jubilant, triggered their decision anxiety. They formally complained that the service was unhelpfully thorough and was a detriment to people who just wanted one simple, better word. 54. Compensation for an entirely new wardrobe was the demand from a woman who claimed her new high-efficiency washing machine was a menace. after an investigation, it was discovered she had put all her expensive wool sweaters into the machine and selected the heavy-duty hot sanitize cycle. She insisted the machine was defective for even offering a setting so obviously destructive. She believed the appliance should have sensed the fabric and refused the command. 55. After dragging files to the recycle bin all morning, an employee clicked empty and immediately called IT in a panic. They weren't asking about their files. They demanded to know when the recycling truck was scheduled to arrive. They genuinely thought the icon was a service request for their actual computer to be picked up for disposal. Their complaint accused the company of a digital greenwashing scheme for tricking employees into thinking they were recycling when no truck ever came. So there you have it. 55 reminders that the most powerful processor in the world is no match for the beautiful chaos of human logic. But now I need you to settle it. Out of all 55 stories, which one do you think was the absolute dumbest? There can only be one champion of absurdity. Drop the number in the comments and let's see which one wins. And while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe for more proof that reality is stranger than any fiction.